Well, my friends, yesterday was a historic day. Donald Trump was inaugurated as the 47th president, and he immediately started making good on his promises. Which, to be fair, I thought he would. It's just good to see that he is. Just so I don't bury the lead, he has pardoned 1,500 J6ers. Now, 14 of those were orders of clemency. The rest were proper actual pardons. And, yeah, it's really good stuff. So these people are going to be freed. Now, one thing I'll say is I've heard rumblings on X. I cannot confirm this. I've not actually, been able to find any information on it. But I'm hearing that there are prisons around the D.C. area that are refusing to let the J6ers out. Now, what I'll say is you can't necessarily attribute it to malice because, Hanlon's razor, never attribute to malice what can be explained by stupidity. But I will say that, these people need to be investigated. We need to find out why they're refusing to, honor the pardons. Is it because they're stupid or is it because they're evil? Because, I wouldn't put it past them to say that they hate these J6ers because they do, and that they want to continue to punish them more, that they don't think that the pardon is right, that they don't think they deserve to be pardoned. And, I would be very interested to see kind of what comes of any investigations, which they definitely should do. But I'll say, with what the J6ers did, I think it's right that they're pardoned. I'm not saying that I agree with what they did. I'm not saying that what they did was right. Because, it wasn't, right? They broke into Capitol buildings. They broke stuff. They, for lack of a better term, they rioted, right? But also, you got to remember that people did the same thing in Oregon. And they burned down a federal building, kind of partially, right? And that's something where you got to say, what's good for the gander is good for the goose. And so on and so forth, right? Or what's good for the goose is good for the gander. In that the leftists decided that the people who were burning down a federal building in Oregon shouldn't be punished. They were all released relatively quickly, right? So the fact that these J6ers, who most of which were just kind of marching around the Capitol, many of which honestly were waved in by police and so on and so forth, were held for 3 years, some of which without charge or trial, is honestly sickening. The fact that Biden would allow that to happen is terrible. But we've got these executive orders. They have, for lack of a better term, they have demanded the freedom of these J6ers, right? They've been pardoned. But, we'll see how long it takes before they're all actually released, right? So a big thing I want to talk about as well is what Donald Trump is doing, right? What he can do, what he's going to do, what I think is feasible, right? Because, he's making good on his promises. I don't know how feasible some of them are. Specifically, I'm thinking, taking Greenland, taking the Panama Canal, taking Canada, so on and so forth. I don't know how feasible that is. Just like last time, whenever he said he was going to build a border wall and Mexico would pay for it, obviously not all that feasible. Same thing with taking Greenland, because, think about what Greenland's saying. They're saying, we're willing to work with the U.S., but we want to be independent, right? So, I don't know that we're going to be able to take Greenland. We might be able to do some economic coercion. I really hope that Trump doesn't do something militarily, because that would be really stupid. But we'll see how that goes. As for Panama, that one's the easy one, right? What's Panama going to do? Fight back? No. We're just going to take the canal, say it's ours, and call it a day. And Panama will say, okay, sorry. Because there's really nothing that they can do, right? As for Canada, that one seems really far-fetched. Because there are Canadians who definitely want it. There are Canadians who definitely want to be the 51st state. There are Canadians who absolutely want nothing to do with the U.S. They're happy with being Canadians. And we'll see, where Trump gets with that. I don't necessarily know that anything will happen there. I very much hope that we don't have any military actions causing, Greenland or Canada to become part of the U.S. I hope if Trump does actually mean that he does actually want Canada and Greenland, that we just do economic coercion and get what we want there. But we'll see how that goes. Either way, let's get into this from Politico. Trump issues sweeping pardons for January 6 rioters. The action laid waste to the Justice Department's 4-year drive to punish the first disruption of transfer of power in American history. That is not true. There have definitely been disruptions of power before. Hell, even look at Trump, right? When Trump first came into office, literally the federal government prevented Trump from doing anything. So, that's already BS right there. President Donald Trump pardoned about 1,500 people who stormed the Capitol in his name on January 6, 2021, instantly laying waste to the Justice Department's 4-year drive to punish the first disruption of the transfer of power in American history, which is BS. The sweeping grant of clemency includes full, complete, and unconditional pardons for some of the most notorious participants in the attack, including hundreds convicted of assaulting police, carrying firearms, destroying property, or otherwise contributing to the violent rampage. To be fair, carrying firearms should not be illegal anywhere. Screw them. It is a constitutional right. Everyone should be allowed to carry a firearm wherever the hell they want. Screw off. Trump also ordered his Justice Department to shut down hundreds of pending January 6 prosecutions, including many for violent crimes. Yes, because pushing a cop is extremely violent. What I'll say is, if you push a cop, you should go to jail. But 3 years is not the amount of time you should go to jail for. You should go to jail for like 6 months, maybe, max. That's a harsh punishment. Among those free from jail with a stroke of Trump's pen, Enrique Tarrio, the former national leader of the far-right Proud Boys, who was sentenced to 22 years in prison for a seditious conspiracy related to the attack. Guy Reffitt, who carried a firearm during a standoff with police that helped facilitate the mob's approach to the Capitol. And Ryan Samsel, the first rioter to breach police lines, who was facing a long list of assault charges. Let's talk about Enrique Tarrio for a minute. This dude literally did nothing. They convicted him because they supposedly had an email or a letter sent from Enrique Tarrio, right? Possibly alluding to something seditious. We don't know necessarily that it was from him, first off. Second off, we don't know that it was actually seditious. It was just a lot of hearsay, right? But they still convicted him because God forbid that anyone push back against Biden, right? Even though he wasn't even there. He wasn't even in the area of D.C. when they convicted him. And he got the harshest sentence of everyone. 22 years. It's wild. Trump's move largely erases the prosecutions that have crammed Washington's federal courthouse and featured prominently in the national politics since Trump attempted to derail Joe Biden's 2020 victory. Trump had repeatedly promised during the 2024 campaign to pardon many January 6 defendants, but until Monday night, it was unclear just how far he would go. Some political allies and even a federal judge he appointed had urged him to refrain from the blanket pardons of those who stormed the Capitol. And Vice President J.D. Vance said this month that people who engaged in violence obviously should not be pardoned. But only the president, Trump's allies noted, gets to decide who receives clemency, and Trump had other ideas. These people have been destroyed, Trump said as he signed the pardons Monday night. What they've done to these people has been outrageous. Trump asked the Bureau of Prisons to facilitate the release of incarcerated defendants immediately. The Justice Department charged about 1,600 perpetrators for their role in the mob, including 600 accused of assaulting or impeding police during the chaos. About 1,100 of them pleaded guilty or were found guilty at trial. The other roughly 500 cases were still pending until Trump's clemency. Those pardoned include Julian Cater, who pepper-sprayed Capitol Police Officer Brian Sicknick in the face. Sicknick died a day later from what a medical examiner said was natural causes. Patrick McAfee, who helped crush D.C. Police Officer Daniel Hodges in a Capitol doorway. And Jake Lang, a rioter charged with numerous assault counts, including attacking police officers with a bat. Listen, if you attack cops, you're going to go to jail. That's how it works, right? These people got a way more serious sentence than they should have, but, you know, they still should have gone to jail. I mean, pepper spraying a cop or attacking a cop with a bat, yeah, you go to jail for that. That's how this works, right? But not for 3 years. Pepper spray, yes, it does hurt, but beyond that, it doesn't really have too much in the way of lasting impacts. I mean, you know, it might be some eye sensitivity, but beyond that, doesn't do much. 6 months. Hitting someone with a bat, that one's a lot more serious. That one maybe we even consider a year. But these people have already easily served way more than what they deserved for what they did. 14 people received commutations instead of full pardons. A commutation is a lesser form of clemency that means those individuals will be released from prison immediately, but at least for now, they will continue to have felony convictions on their records. Despite the pardon for Tarrio, Trump opted only to commute the sentence of others who were convicted of seditious conspiracy, including Stewart Rhodes, the founder of the anti-government Oath Keepers. The federal judge who sentenced Rhodes to 18 years in prison recently said the thought of him being released was frightening. Yes, be very frightened, you pussy-ass judge. Others whose sentences were commuted include Dominic Pizzola, a New York Proud Boy who led the crowd into the Capitol when he shattered a Senate wing window, and was serving a 10-year sentence, which you should not get a 10-year sentence for breaking a window. That's ridiculous. Even if you're leading a charge, that's ridiculous. Ethan Nordine and Joe Biggs, who led hundreds of Proud Boys on a march from the Washington Monument to the Capitol, where they helped ignite breaches of numerous police lines and some of Rhodes' top Oath Keepers allies. Trump also directed his Justice Department to abruptly drop the 470 ongoing criminal cases against January 6 defendants, including hundreds facing assault charges. The president told prosecutors to request that the cases be dismissed with prejudice, meaning they could not be refiled. Some of those cases had already netted guilty pleas and the defendants were awaiting sentences. About 700 defendants had already completed their jail sentences or were never sentenced to prison at all. The effects of the mass clemency by Trump are likely to cascade through the federal courthouse in Washington, where prosecutors have churned through January 6 cases daily for the past 4 years. 2 felony cases were expected to reach jury verdicts this week. Other defendants began asking judges Monday night to dismiss their cases, even before Trump signed the pardon paperwork. So let's just say, first off, like I said beforehand, these people had already served their sentences, and they were heavy-handed sentences at that. I think what Trump did is a good thing, because what's good for the goose is good for the gander. If leftists don't serve prison, why should conservatives? Either way, guys, that's all I've got to say about that. Make sure to smash that like button and subscribe. Next segment's coming up later today. We'll see you then.